I want you to picture something for me. Imagine loving someone so fiercely that you'd burn your entire world down just to keep them warm. Now imagine that same person looking right through you like you're made of glass. Like you never existed at all. That's what it feels like when your own child erases you from their life. And let me tell you something, it doesn't matter how many years pass. That pain doesn't fade. It just learns to live inside your bones, quiet and cold, waiting. Before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching this from. I want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever felt invisible in your own story, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. Also, check the description box below. There are more stories like mine there, stories about people who refuse to stay silent. My name is Dorothy Ann Sullivan. I'm 63 years old, and until very recently, I thought I'd spend the rest of my days in the same 3-bedroom ranch house where I raised my son, buried my husband, and learned what loneliness truly means. The house sits on Maple Grove Avenue in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. You know the kind of neighborhood: American flags on porches, sprinklers running on summer evenings, the sound of lawn mowers on Saturday mornings. The kind of place where everyone waves, but nobody really sees you. My son's name is Daniel. Danny, I used to call him. He's 41 now, though I haven't seen him age past 26. That was the year he met Veronica at some tech startup networking event in Seattle. She was ambitious, polished, spoke 3 languages fluently. She was also the kind of woman who looked at me like I was a smudge on her designer sunglasses. Within 6 months, Danny had moved across the country. Within a year, he stopped calling. Within 2, he stopped answering. For 15 years, I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, letters with no return address required because I knew they'd never write back. I told myself maybe he was busy. Maybe he was trying to find himself. Maybe. That word became my religion. I prayed it every night like some kind of twisted rosary. My husband, Robert, died 8 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. It took him in 4 months, so fast I barely had time to understand what was happening before he was gone. I called Danny, left 3 voicemails, sent emails. His father was dying, and I needed him to come home. He sent flowers to the funeral. No card. Just white lilies that smelled like sterile hospital rooms and broken promises. After Robert died, the house felt too big. Every room echoed. I could hear my own breathing bounce off the walls at night. I started sleeping with the TV on just to have voices around me. Sometimes I'd make 2 cups of coffee in the morning out of habit, then pour the second one down the sink and cry over the steam rising from the drain. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what my life had become. I wasn't living. I was existing. Waiting. Hoping that maybe one day my phone would ring and I'd hear that voice again. Hey Mom. I'm sorry. Can I come home? That call never came. What did come was a letter from my Aunt Beatrice's attorney. Aunt B had been 94 when she passed. Sharp as a tack until the very end, living alone in her paid-off condo in Sarasota, refusing any help, doing her own grocery shopping until 3 days before she died. She'd always liked me. Said I had grit. Said I reminded her of herself before the world tried to smooth out all her rough edges. She left me everything. $375,000. Just like that. A lifetime of careful saving, wise investing, and living below her means, all transferred into my name. The lawyer, a man named Gerald Whitmore with kind eyes and a firm handshake, told me it would take about 6 weeks for everything to clear probate and transfer into my account. I remember sitting in his office, staring at the paperwork, thinking this was blood money in a way. Money that came because someone I loved was gone. It didn't feel real. It felt like receiving an apology from a ghost. I didn't tell anyone. Not my neighbor Carol, not my friend Janet from church, not even my sister Linda who lives 2 hours away in Cleveland. Something told me to keep quiet. Some instinct I didn't even know I still had whispered, wait. Watch. Don't show your hand yet. The money cleared on a Tuesday, October 17th. I checked my bank account on my laptop at 6:30 in the morning, Still in my bathrobe, coffee growing cold beside me. There it was. The numbers that proved Aunt B had thought of me, had remembered me, had seen me when my own son couldn't. I sat there for 20 minutes just staring at the screen. Crying. Not sad tears, exactly. Something else. Relief, maybe. Or rage that it took money to make me feel like I mattered. I didn't expect what happened next. At 2:47 that same afternoon, my doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer. I'd been in the garden, pulling weeds from around the rose bushes Robert had planted the year before he died. My hands were dirty, my knees hurt, and I wasn't expecting anyone. But the doorbell rang again. Insistent. Then knocking. I walked to the front door, wiped my hands on my jeans, and looked through the peephole. My heart stopped. Danny stood on my porch. Older now, his hairline receding, wearing expensive-looking jeans and a leather jacket I'd never seen before. Behind him stood Veronica, her dark hair pulled into a severe ponytail, typing something on her phone. And beside them, 3 children I'd never met. My grandchildren. 2 boys and a girl. The oldest looked about 12. The youngest, maybe 7. They'd come home. After 15 years of silence, they'd come home. I stood frozen with my hand on the doorknob, my pulse hammering in my throat. Part of me wanted to throw the door open and pull Danny into my arms. Part of me wanted to deadbolt the lock and walk away. But I'm a mother. And mothers are conditioned to hope even when hope is a weapon pointed at their own hearts. I opened the door. Danny smiled. Not the warm smile I remembered. Something practiced. Something that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey Mom," he said. Surprise. They stepped into my house like they owned it. Like they hadn't abandoned it. And me, over a decade ago. Danny gave me a quick, awkward hug that felt like hugging a stranger. Veronica offered a tight smile and immediately started looking around, her eyes cataloging everything like a realtor assessing property value. The children hung back near the door, silent and staring. "This is Nathan," Danny said, gesturing to the oldest boy. Oliver in the middle. And Sophia, our youngest. I tried to memorize their faces. Tried to see pieces of Danny in them, pieces of myself, pieces of Robert. But they looked at me with the hollow politeness of children meeting a distant relative at a funeral. "Hi," I managed. My voice sounded strange. Too high. Too eager. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you. I'm your grandmother." Sophia wrinkled her nose. She whispered something to Oliver in Spanish. He snickered. "I don't speak Spanish. I took 2 years of it in high school 45 years ago and remember nothing except Donde está el baño." But I understood the tone. That universal language of mockery that transcends words. "English please," Danny said, but he was smiling when he said it. Not correcting. Indulging. Veronica walked past me into the living room, her heels clicking on the hardwood Robert and I had refinished together 20 years ago. "Daniel, we should talk about logistics. How long are we staying?" Staying. The word landed like a stone in my chest. "I thought maybe a few weeks," Danny said, looking at me now. "If that's okay, Mom. We're between situations right now. Sold our place in Seattle, looking at options in Austin. Thought it might be nice for the kids to spend some time with their grandmother." Something in his voice. Something calculated. I'd raised this man. I knew when he was lying, even now, even after all these years. But I smiled. Nodded. "Of course. You're always welcome here. If you've ever been betrayed, you know what I'm talking about. That moment when you can feel the knife going in, but you're still not sure if you should pull it out or push it deeper just to know for certain it's real. If you're feeling that right now, do me a favor, share this video. Someone in your life needs to hear this story. And don't forget to check the description box for more stories like mine, stories about survival." They moved in that same evening. Danny and Veronica took the master bedroom, my bedroom where Robert died, where I'd slept alone for 8 years. I moved into the guest room. The kids took Danny's old room, bunk beds I'd kept maintained all these years just in case. Just in case he ever came home. The first few days were awkward but manageable. I cooked elaborate meals. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans from the garden. Danny ate quietly. Veronica picked at her food and made comments about carbs. The children ate quickly and disappeared to their phones. I tried to connect with them. Asked Nathan about school. He shrugged. Asked Oliver what he liked to do for fun. He mumbled something about gaming. Sophia wouldn't look at me at all. Then I started noticing things. They spoke Spanish around me constantly. Full conversations over dinner, in the living room, in the car when I drove them to the grocery store. I'd hear my name sometimes. Dorothy. The way Veronica said it, with that slight emphasis, that tone. I didn't need a translation to know it wasn't kind. One afternoon, I came home from the pharmacy. I take blood pressure medication, nothing serious, and found them all in the living room. Veronica was showing the kids something on her phone, and they were laughing. That mean kind of laughter. The kind that has a target. I walked past toward the kitchen, and Sophia said something in rapid Spanish. The only words I caught were abuela and farmacia. Grandmother and pharmacy. They burst into laughter. Even Danny chuckled. I stood in the kitchen doorway, still holding my little white pharmacy bag, and felt something inside me start to crack. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest room, in what used to be my sewing room, surrounded by boxes of fabric and Robert's old books, and stared at the ceiling. I could hear them through the walls. More Spanish. More laughter. I got up, opened my laptop, and did something I never thought I'd do. I started researching translation apps. Security cameras. Ways to record audio discreetly. I know how that sounds. But you have to understand, I needed to know. I needed to hear what they were really saying. What my son and his family really thought of me. It took me 3 days to figure out the technology. I'm not completely helpless, but I'm not exactly tech-savvy either. I bought a small recording device on Amazon, disguised as a USB charger. Set it up in the living room where they spent most of their time. The first recording almost broke me. I listened to it alone in my car, parked behind the grocery store, hands shaking as I held my phone. Veronica's voice, sharp and clear. No sé cuánto tiempo más puedo soportar este lugar. Huel a veces y desesperation. I don't know how much longer I can stand this place. It smells like old age and desperation. Danny laughed. My son. My boy. Laughed. Solo unas semanas más, he said. Just a few more weeks. Una vez que se calmen las cosas con los acreedores, nos vamos. Once things settle with the creditors, we leave. Creditors. My stomach turned. Then Sophia's voice, whiny and petulant. La casa de abuela huele a perfume viejo. Lo odio aquí. Grandmother's house smells like old perfume. I hate it here. Oliver chimed in, apesta como una farmacia. It reeks like a pharmacy. They all laughed. A family bonding moment. At my expense. I sat in that car and I cried until I couldn't breathe. Until my chest hurt. Until I thought maybe this was it, maybe this was how it ended. Alone in a grocery store parking lot, listening to my own family mock me in a language they thought I couldn't understand. But then something else happened. Something shifted. The crying stopped. The hurt crystallized into something harder. Something cold and sharp and focused. They thought I was weak. They thought I was old and foolish and desperate for their love. They thought they could use me, mock me, discard me again when they got what they needed. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I dried my tears, started the car, and drove home. I smiled when I walked in. Offered them fresh lemonade. Asked what they wanted for dinner. And I started planning. The thing about revenge is that it requires patience. You can't be hot-headed. You can't be impulsive. You have to be cold, calculated, and absolutely certain of your moves before you make them. I'd spent 15 years waiting for my son to come home. I could wait a little longer to show him what it cost to treat his mother like a fool. I kept recording. Every conversation. Every laugh. Every cruel comment they thought I couldn't understand. I took my phone to a local college, told a Spanish literature professor I was trying to learn the language to surprise my grandchildren, and got a full, detailed translation of everything they'd said. It was worse than I'd imagined. Nathan had called me La Vieja Patética multiple times. The pathetic old woman. Veronica had discussed convincing me to help with their financial troubles. Apparently they'd racked up nearly $200,000 in debt through bad investments and Veronica's failed attempt at starting a luxury goods import business. Danny had mentioned my inheritance. Not directly, but enough. Si jugamos bien nuestras cartas, he'd said. If we play our cards right. They weren't here to reconnect. They were here to extract. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who think you're too weak to fight back. If you're nodding along right now, if you've been in this position, comment below and tell me your story. And please, subscribe to this channel. You need to see what happens next. Also, there are more stories like this in the description box. Stories about people who refuse to be victims. I started making calls. First to Gerald Whitmore, Aunt Bea's attorney. I told him I needed to set up a trust, immediately, with very specific conditions. He was professional enough not to ask too many questions, but I could hear the concern in his voice. Mrs. Sullivan, is everything all right? Everything's fine, I lied. I'm just being practical. The trust was ironclad. My inheritance would be protected, inaccessible to anyone but me unless I was declared legally incompetent by 2 independent doctors and a judge. I also updated my will. Danny would get the house, but only after my death, and only if he met certain conditions that I outlined in excruciating detail with Gerald's help. Conditions I knew he'd never meet. Everything else, the money, my personal possessions, my car, would go to charity. To organizations that helped abandoned elderly parents reconnect with their families. To shelters for homeless seniors. To anyone but the people currently living under my roof. Next, I called my sister Linda. Told her everything. She was horrified. Dottie, you need to throw them out. Right now. Not yet, I said. Not until they show themselves completely. What are you planning? I paused. I'm going to give them exactly what they're asking for. I started playing the role they expected. The lonely, desperate grandmother. I asked Veronica about her business ideas, listened intently, nodded enthusiastically. I told Danny I'd been thinking about my finances, about how nice it was to finally have family around again. I planted seeds. Watered them carefully. You know, I mentioned one evening over dinner, Aunt B left me more than I know what to do with. I've been thinking about helping family. About making things easier for the people I love. I watched their eyes light up. Watched them exchange glances. That night, they celebrated. I heard them through the walls, speaking Spanish again, thinking I was asleep. Lo sabía, Veronica said. I knew it. Es tan fácil manipularla. She's so easy to manipulate. Mi madre siempre fue débil, Danny added. My mother was always weak. I lay in the dark, listening, and smiled. 2 weeks after they'd arrived, Danny finally asked directly. We were alone in the kitchen. He'd cornered me while I was making my morning coffee, the ritual I'd kept sacred even through everything. Mom, I need to talk to you about something. I turned, made my eyes soft. Hopeful. Of course, sweetheart. Anything. We're in a tough spot financially. The move, the transition, some investments that didn't pan out. I was wondering if you might consider helping us out. Just until we get back on our feet. How much do you need? He hesitated. Testing the waters. Maybe 50,000? To start. I let the silence stretch. Watched him squirm. Then I sighed, reached out, touched his arm. Let me think about it. Let me talk to my financial advisor. His face lit up. Really? Mom, that would be thank you. Thank you so much. He hugged me. A real hug this time. Or what he thought was real. What I felt was the embrace of a stranger wearing my son's face, accessing a mother's love like it was just another account to drain. That afternoon, I met with Gerald again. We refined the plan. I also called a family therapist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, recommended by Linda, who specialized in family estrangement and reconciliation. I explained the situation. Asked if she'd be willing to facilitate a family meeting. I want to do this properly, I told her. I want to give them one chance to be honest with me. Dr. Mitchell agreed, though I could hear the skepticism in her voice. Mrs. Sullivan, you should prepare yourself for the possibility that they won't respond the way you're hoping. Oh, I'm prepared, I assured her. I'm very prepared. The family meeting was scheduled for the following Wednesday. I told Danny it was about discussing our future together as a family, and making sure everyone's needs were being met. He agreed immediately. Veronica seemed annoyed but compliant. The kids just shrugged. In the days leading up to the meeting, they ramped up their behavior. More Spanish conversations. More pointed comments. Sophia had started complaining about everything: the food, the temperature, the weird old lady smell that apparently permeated the house. I recorded it all. Tuesday night, the evening before the meeting, I cooked Danny's favorite meal. Meatloaf with brown sugar glaze, scalloped potatoes, roasted carrots. The meal I used to make for his birthday every year before he disappeared. He noticed. Mom, is this your birthday dinner? I finished. I remember. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or just indigestion. Hard to tell. We ate mostly in silence. The kids complained in Spanish about the food being too heavy and disgusting. Veronica pushed hers around her plate. After dinner, I brought out a cake. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. Another tradition from when Danny was young. I know it's not your birthday, I said softly. But I've missed so many. I wanted to make up for at least one. Danny actually teared up. Mom, It's okay, I interrupted. Tomorrow we'll talk about everything. About the past, the future. All of it. He nodded. Veronica watched me with narrowed eyes. She was smarter than Danny. She sensed something. But by then, it was too late. Dr. Mitchell arrived at my house at 10 a.m. Wednesday morning. She was younger than I expected. Maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that immediately put everyone at ease. Everyone except Veronica, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. We sat in the living room. My living room. Where I'd raised Danny. Where Robert and I had watched him grow. Where I'd sat alone for 8 years, grieving more than one loss. Dr. Mitchell explained the process. Everyone would have a chance to speak. To express their feelings honestly, without judgment. To work toward understanding and healing. I went first, just as we'd planned. I want to say how grateful I am that you're all here, I began. My voice was steady. Practiced. For 15 years, I wondered if I'd ever see my son again. If I'd ever meet my grandchildren. And now you're here, and I'm so happy. So grateful. I paused. Let the words settle. But I'm also confused. I've been noticing some things. Some behaviors. Some conversations I'm not included in. And I want to understand. I want to know what's really going on. Danny shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we've just been adjusting. Let her finish, Dr. Mitchell said gently. I continued. I don't speak Spanish. You all know that. But I want you to know something. I pulled out my phone. Connected it to the Bluetooth speaker I'd set up earlier. I may not speak it, but I can learn. I can understand. I pressed play. Sophia's voice filled the room. La casa de Abuela huele a perfume viejo. Lo odio aquí. Grandmother's house smells like old perfume. I hate it here. Then Oliver. Apesta como una farmacia. It reeks like a pharmacy. Veronica's laugh. Sharp and cruel. I watched their faces drain of color. Watched Danny's mouth fall open. I pressed play again. Different recording. Veronica's voice this time. Es tan fácil manipularla. She's so easy to manipulate. Then Danny. Mi madre siempre fue débil. My mother was always weak. I stopped the playback. The silence in the room was absolute. I had these translated, I said quietly. Every conversation. Every joke. Every cruel word you thought I was too old, too stupid, too desperate to understand. Mom, Danny started. I'm not finished. My voice was steel now. All the softness gone. You came here because you needed money. Because you're in debt. Because you thought your pathetic old mother would be easy to manipulate. You're right about one thing. I am desperate. I've been desperate for 15 years. Desperate for my son to love me. To see me. To remember that I exist. Tears were streaming down my face now, but my voice never wavered. You want to know what the cruelest part is? I would have helped you. If you'd come here, been honest, treated me with even a shred of respect, I would have given you anything. Because that's what mothers do. We give until there's nothing left. I stood up. Walked to the coffee table. Pulled out a folder of documents. But you couldn't even give me that basic dignity. So here's what's going to happen. This house? It's still mine. When I die, it goes to charity. The inheritance from Aunt B? It's in a trust. You can't touch it. My will has been updated. You get nothing. Nothing except the memory of how you treated your mother when she needed you most. Danny was crying now. Real tears. Mom, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was stupid. I was desperate. I never meant. You meant every word, I cut him off. And now you have to live with that. Veronica stood up, grabbed her purse. This is ridiculous. Daniel, we're leaving. Yes, I agreed. You are. You have until tomorrow morning to get out of my house. Dr. Mitchell has already documented everything. If you refuse to leave, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. I looked at my grandchildren. They were crying too, huddled together on the couch. Part of me wanted to comfort them. To tell them it wasn't their fault. But they were old enough to know better. Old enough to understand cruelty. I hope someday you'll understand what you lost here, I told them. Not the money. Me. A grandmother who would have loved you fiercely. Who would have been there for every birthday, every milestone, every moment. But you chose mockery over love. You chose cruelty over connection. Dr. Mitchell stood. I think we should end the session here. Dorothy, do you need anything else? No, I said. I think I've said everything I needed to say. They left that evening. Packed in a fury of suitcases and slammed doors and muttered Spanish curses. Danny tried one more time to talk to me, standing in the doorway with tears on his face. Mom, please. I can change. We can fix this. I looked at him. My boy. My son. The child I'd carried, raised, loved with everything I had. Maybe you can change, I said softly. But I'm done waiting to find out. I spent 15 years hoping you'd come home. And when you finally did, you showed me exactly who you've become. I believe you now. He left without another word. It's been 6 months since that day. The house is quiet again. But it's a different kind of quiet now. Not lonely. Not waiting. Just peaceful. I still get emails from Danny sometimes. Long apologies. Explanations. Promises. I read them. I don't respond. Linda comes to visit more often now. Carol from next door brings me soup. Janet from church invited me to join the book club. I'm learning Spanish, properly this time, with a tutor. Not to understand people who mock me, but because I've always wanted to learn another language and I realized I have time now. I have time for myself. The inheritance is still in trust. I'm using small amounts to fund scholarships for estranged parents trying to reconnect with their children through therapy. To support literacy programs. To help people who, like me, spent too long invisible. If you've stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. Truly. If you've ever felt invisible, ever been betrayed by the people who should love you most, I want you to know something: you're not alone. Your pain matters. Your story matters. And you deserve better than people who only see you as something to use. Before you go, do me one last favor. Check the description box below. There are more stories there from people who survived, who fought back, who refused to stay silent. Stories that might help you feel less alone. And share this if it resonated with you. Someone needs to hear it. I learned something through all of this. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reclaiming your dignity. It's about setting boundaries and enforcing them, even when it breaks your heart. It's about choosing yourself when everyone else has chosen against you. Danny made his choice 15 years ago. And then he made it again when he walked through my door thinking I was too weak to fight back. I made my choice too. I chose me. And for the first time in 15 years, I can sleep through the night without the TV on. Without waiting for a phone call that will never come. Without hoping for love from people who only see me as a resource to drain. I am Dorothy Ann Sullivan. I am 63 years old. I am someone's mother, someone's aunt, someone's friend, someone's neighbor. But most importantly, I am mine. And nobody gets to take that from me ever again.